All right, the Eagles are getting close to their first preseason game with a number of different positional battles to keep an eye on. However, a few of them appear to be somewhat decided. Meanwhile, Gardner Johnson is still out with a shoulder injury, and New Orleans is whining and dining Justin Simmons. So what's the latest going on there? As another relationship in Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni was brought back into question, and QB1 offered his thoughts. Plus, Kellen Moore's offense is proving it's way different than last year. But what kind of trickery does Kellen have up his sleeve, and when will he use it? So let's talk about it. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? So let's start with the Eagles announcing that they signed... Okay, I'm sorry, that's really a bad way to start it. But they did make a move announcing that they've waived wide receiver Shaq Davis and have claimed tight end Armani Rogers. Which, yeah, isn't that earth-shattering of a move considering that Davis wasn't getting too many reps already. Plus, the tight end depth is fine, and Rogers hasn't really done anything, no offense to him. In fact, he's probably better known as the guy who ran 99 yards in college to set the record for the longest run for a quarterback in NCAA history. But after playing quarterback at Ohio and UNLV, Rogers transitioned to tight end before the draft. As he eventually signed as an undrafted free agent with the Washington Commanders, however, due to some injuries, he hasn't gotten much of a chance. Like he tore his Achilles just about 14 months ago. So I don't know, maybe practice squad potential, but he's definitely not setting any records soon. Anyway, on that note, we do have a crazy record that just got broken, with Jalen Hurts completing a couple passes to set the Eagles' training camp record according to ESPN for most consecutive passes without an interception, breaking the previous record of 157 completions, meaning he'll now go into the Hall of Fame.
Hey, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Fair, because it's literally training camp. Like, I'm all for hyping up some positive play, y'all know that, but come on, to start freaking out over practice records is, I don't know, maybe a little overkill.
What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man.
Yeah, let's not get carried away. Although it was Jalen's birthday, so how about wishing Mr. Breed of One a happy birthday and then drop on down and hit the like button? Because QB1's clearly taking his game to another level this season. Which, by the way, if we can get this video to hit 2,000 likes, I'm going to give away something pretty insane. And I don't know, it may or may not have something to do with the Eagles' leader. But with Jalen being the topic of discussion, let's jump right into ESPN's article about Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. As Tim McManus said things like the team acting like their dog died even when they were 10-1, a disconnect in offensive visions with a lack of full respect for Sirianni's X's and O's, and mentioning Jalen's attempt to play hero ball or do too much along with other dysfunction. Yet if you're wondering why we're bringing that up now, Jalen had the same question.
Why is that relevant now?
Why is it relevant?
Yeah.
Trying to give proper context from what happened last season so we have a better understanding of where we are now.
Okay. Well, I think for certain things, I appreciate what you guys do and everything you guys bring, the attention and sometimes the understanding. I think sometimes people are only able to know what they understand. Sometimes people don't know what they don't know. But in that regard, I think, where we are is you have reports and you have rumors and then you have reality. And, we're in reality right now. And we got different people doing different things, and we have different responsibilities in their natural nature, but ultimately we're just attacking it day by day, and this team is putting the best foot forward in effort and intensity, and it's really being a team and being together, and that's been my whole entire message, this whole entire training camp and this whole off season. And so it's been a good journey so far, and I think my natural nature is to because I don't know about. But my natural nature is to block out the external factors because I think it comes a point where sometimes you question so much and the negativity becomes redundant. So this team is one of those teams that's going to do that, especially with the things that we've been able to experience. And it is a proper development. It was a developing time. It was a time of development for us, and that's something we learn from.
Look, I can appreciate an insightful look back into last season and what went wrong, but if you read the article and those in the know, there was not really a whole lot of extra info there. So I don't really blame Jalen for kind of siding with Gardner Johnson's sentiment of why is that relevant. Because this squad is focused, and they're different, and they're locked in. Even if there are some who would have you to believe the core of this squad is shaken. Like for real, CD Deuce is definitely one of those big changes in setting the culture and establishing that intensity. Plus, there's no denying how the newcomers still view the vibes of the team.
You come here, you got Jordan Davis, you got Jalen Carter, you got Bryce Huff, you got Josh Sweat, guys up front that's really holding it down. And if when the practice
lay on the backside,
that's what I'm trying to tell you. So it's like it's pieces here. So it's like, and another thing I looked at it like, man, if I come here and be a dominant middle linebacker, They ain't never had that, like, you know, and not knocking the guys that's been here before, but I know what I bring and I know what they haven't had. So if I come here and handle my business, that can turn into something long term. And it's still around a great team. Yep. You know, the great team that's here now gonna still be here if I sign long term, you know, or whatnot. So all that played a factor in. You know, obviously just, you know, I knew I had to rebuild myself. I had to show the world again, which I don't mind doing. You know, I did it coming out of college. I did it when I first got in the NFL. I'm in year 6, I'm better. You know, mentally I'm stronger, physically I'm stronger. Football-wise, I'm way smarter. So I feel like I got new coaches, they hungry. You know, this not the same coaching staff. My linebacker coach got fired in Tennessee, so he want to prove that, hey, I'm a good coach, you know, so I feel like it's a lot of personalities in the building.
That really is the difference, and to steal a quote from the GOAT, an underdog is a hungry dog, and as we all know, hungry dogs run faster. So the fact that not only is most of your roster filled with guys with chips on your shoulder and something to prove, but so is the coaching staff, I love being in this position. Seriously, you can't tell me the aura of this team feels the same like it did last year, which is obviously a very good thing. Yet let's also not act like there's been a massive character change. For example, if we want to look into the ESPN article at all, then how about we go to the part where Jalen called Wink Martindale to get tips on how to beat the blitz? You know, since the Giants had just had a good bit of success against him the week before the playoff game. However, that shouldn't really be that surprising because Jalen's a pro's pro. With Martindale saying that in his 40 years of coaching, that was the first time he'd had an opposing quarterback call him up, while also admitting it shows what kind of pro Jalen is and that he's always looking for every possible angle to get better, which is really just par for the course, because after all, he's a breed of one.
For me, trying to continue to pour into my cup in terms of knowledge, and, you know, I've had a lot of respect for what he's done, and we've had a lot of success versus him. I think that was a point where we're definitely trying to make a run and make a push, and I was just trying to pour into my cup and knowledge from him and pick his brain on some things. And, you know, a very respectable person, actually a great person, in that a great coach and has a great mentality about how he goes about his business.
Okay, naturally, having heard that, I can understand if your thought is cool, great, he called Wink to get some tips, but what exactly did that do for him? And sure, I mean, it is unfortunate that those tips didn't seem to help. Because yeah, we all lived through it, it was awful. Of course, let's be honest, it's nearly impossible to do anything when you're hamstrung by your head coach's offense, especially against the blitz. Again, that was last year though, and kudos to Sirianni for admitting he messed up, saying he tried to control too much and didn't empower the players. Now, obviously it goes both ways, but anyway, as we fast forward to today, you got Sirianni taking a back seat to Kellen Moore to give him the reins of the offense. And granted, it's early, but even the quick returns of motion and under center plays and receivers in the slot have been really promising. However, let's not act like that's surprising, since Kellen's X's and O's knowledge garners just a bit more respect than Sirianni's. But sure, everyone still has tendencies, even with Moore's variety of play designs and trying to take advantage of the defense. Except the best part about Philly's new OC is that he's not afraid to play mind games with the opposing defenses to switch things up in the biggest moments.
Certainly once you get to game plan football and you get into the regular season, you got to be really conscious of who's on the field and what those tendencies dictate. Sometimes you want to create tendencies for your own ability to trump them at later points. And so we'll continue to evolve and utilize all those different points, you know, whether it be who's on the field from tight ends, running backs, it's every single unit. We got to be really conscious of that just to protect our tendencies. And like I said, sometimes you want to have tendencies to break them in critical moments.
I know I mentioned that on my last video, but at least it won't be so telegraphed like it was last year. Because who doesn't love a little trickery or unorthodox play calling to surprise defense? Especially when you've got an offense like the Eagles. Although it's a fair point that some of you may bring up about a few of Kellen Moore's ridiculous play calls in those high-pressure situations being head-scratchers. But hey, nobody's perfect and we all make mistakes. Plus, I mean, if I had to choose, I'd probably err on the side of someone who's willing to evolve and change and self-reflect and at least be creative. Oh yeah, and also possesses an insane IQ of NFL offenses, as opposed to last year's offense that was admittedly just a hope and pray approach sometimes.
I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way.
Like I've said before, at least the biggest positive is that the players are bought in. However, on the flip side of the non-committal approach, Sirianni continues to be unsure about playing the starters in Friday's preseason game. Of course, the fact that Baltimore has an extremely high chance of rain during the game probably makes it more likely that we don't see the starters. But that didn't stop him from getting in some work at Wednesday's practice despite it being a lighter one, as the group started with a walkthrough instead of warm-ups, where the notable thing to point out was that Mekhi Becton was the starting right guard for the offense. Yet again, reminder that both Kellen Moore and Sirianni have echoed the same sentiment that that's not necessarily an endorsement. I mean, cool, but I'm with Zack who said that this is the time you watch what they do rather than listen to what they say. Because in the past, you could argue Steen was listed as limited or maybe they were easing him back in, except based on the injury report, Tyler Steen was a full participant, with the only guys out and not practicing being Oren Burks with a continued knee injury, Paris Campbell, groin, Mekhi Gardner and his hamstring, Brandon Smith who's working through the concussion protocol, and I intentionally saved CJ Gardner-Johnson for last with his shoulder. Now, the promising aspect is that CJ's shoulder isn't that bad of an injury and he should be back fairly soon. But like I covered in the past video on CD's presence, you feel his impact in the building, and it's also noticeable when he's not there, since James Bradberry and Avonte Maddox are your options at backup. Having said that, I'm not going to go through the whole list again of potential free agent targets. Although, I will update you on the Justin Simmons situation, with Josina Anderson reporting the New Orleans Saints met with Justin Simmons to get his medicals done along with a workout and then talk through his potential usage. Where assuming all that checks out, then it just comes down to, well, financials.
How can I get you to stay?
Money.
I get it. I mean, that's literally what it's always been about, but it is starting to feel like that window is beginning to shut for Philly, and like I've also talked about, I hope that that's really not a regretful decision. Anyway, with Chauncey still out, Avonte Maddox filled in for him at practice. And by the way, I know we saw the Eagles' unofficial depth chart get released, which had Tyler Steen ahead of Mekhi Becton and a couple other notable differences, but I would take him with a grain of salt considering the fact that what we've seen is probably a little more accurate than penciled in names. For example, your starting linebackers are Devin White and Zack Baun until further notice, since they again started at practice. Now, what was noteworthy is that Quinyon Mitchell was getting some reps on the outside instead of just only playing in the slot like he has been. Of course, on the offensive side, they kept up their momentum as they have most days, with Jalen finding tight end Grant Calcaterra in the back corner of the end zone for 6. As Brandon Legoutten also noted, Jalen's running a whole lot less and getting rid of the ball much more quickly than he has in the past. Again, obviously credit to Kellen Moore, who several members have pointed out that he will quickly correct Jalen if he's wrong, emphasizing some tough but fair coaching, which is no doubt a positive sign. I mean, for those of you that wanted Jalen to have some serious coaching, there you go. And QB1's been taking it well, who had especially good accuracy and anticipation on display for his next throw to Grant Calcaterra. With Jeff Kerr sharing, GC ran a sharp route up the seam to split coverage from Zack Baun and Reed Blankenship for about 25 yards, as Calcaterra has clearly separated as the backup behind Dallas Goedert. Now, another guy who continues to solidify his spot is Britton Covey. For example, like the play BLG pointed to, Britt made a tough contested catch downfield over the middle on a Kenny Pickett pass, where Covey was able to hold on despite getting hit as he made the grab. Also, let me just pause and say you've got to love the fact that Philly is using the middle of the field a ton. Although that shouldn't be such a surprise, since remember, Kellen has said previously the offense was continuing to build and evolve and add different elements all the way up to the start of the season. So yeah, the middle of the field definitely seems evident, as Jalen Hurts delivered a strike to Dallas Goedert for a TD over the middle, with QB1 continuing the sharpest training camp trend, as has mostly been the case for Goedert too. But come on, it hasn't mattered what the situation or the setup or anything like that has been for Jalen, with ESP praising Hurts particularly on a 3rd and 5, because Jalen quickly surveyed and found Devontae Smith across the middle for an easy first down. Notice again, I said across the middle. So yeah, that's really positive. However, unfortunately, on the flip side of that, the negative is that Nakobe Dean was apparently the one in coverage. So Vic Fangio decided to change it up, where once the defensive rotation switched, on the next play, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. was in good position to make a tackle to keep Tyrion Davis-Price out of the end zone after a play-action pass to the flat. With honestly the extra cool part being Zack Baun ran up to Trot and praised him for not getting tricked. Oh, FYI, according to Brandon Legoutten, that was after Baun had already made a play to knock out the ball from Johnny Wilson's hands to prevent him from making a score. Now, by the way, let me just go ahead and say this already. I'm just reporting what the tweets say. I mean, what the reports are here, those are what's coming from camp. I'm not making this up, and yes, if Nakobe does something positive, I'll let you know. And sure, he's been great in run defense and blitzing, I'm just mainly talking about the coverage component. Having said that, Tanner McKee ended up taking some second-team reps after that, while making a particularly good throw to Austin Watkins, with several members praising his timing and anticipation to combine for the score. Oh yeah, another quick note on the play, Jimmy Kempski mentioned Josh Jobe was the one in coverage, and despite his special teams ability, it's going to be hard for him to make the roster based on his production from camp. Now, Kenny Pickett also made a few plays, with one going to Covey, who made a catch in traffic. Yet not nearly the same success thanks to some defensive pressure by Brandon Graham, who ended up eventually sacking Pickett. And then also keeping up the play with the vets, Slay had a good pass breakup while guarding Joseph Ngata in what was a really well-thrown ball from Jalen, as Slay's continued to show his ability to not lose a step. And I don't know, maybe that's in credit to what Slay called the toughest Eagles camp he's ever been a part of. Like, I'll just go ahead and say that's one of the best things that I've heard, and kudos to Vic Fangio, because he did say that he's asking for as many practices as possible from Sirianni. But getting back to a few other plays, Ben Van Sumeren got a sack on Pickett as well. And Anaya Smith ended up making a couple really good catches according to Kempski, which was very much needed for the Rook considering some of the practices he's had. Also, on the special teams front, the squad practiced kick return drills, with the blockers for the first team being Tyler Hall, Patrick Johnson, Ben Van Sumeren, Keely Ringo, Josh Jobe, Jalix Hunt, Grant Calcaterra, Zack Baun, and Tristan McCollum. So it'll be interesting to see who can carve out a role among the guys on the bubble, because like we all know, every year there's at least 1 to 2 guys that make it based on that performance. Anyway, I can't really believe I'm saying this, but next up is the Eagles preseason action. And again, by the way, we will be live streaming for that game, so feel free to swing on by. We might give away some stuff, and I'll see you then. Until next time, this has been the Philly Special.